The Odyssey does not tell the story of how a man finds his way home. It tells us what remains of a person when everything has been taken from him: his ships, his men, his glory, and in the end, almost even his own name. For nearly 3,000 years, the journey of Odysseus has been told as an adventure, a story of monsters, gods, and distant islands. But beneath that surface lies something deeper, a map of the human soul. And maybe Ithaca is not a place we must reach. Maybe Ithaca is what waits inside us when everything else has disappeared. The Odyssey begins after the war. Troy has fallen. The victory is won. Odysseus, the cleverest of all Greeks, could return home as a hero. But this is where the real trial begins. Because it is easy to be a hero while the world is watching. Much harder to remain yourself when nobody applauds anymore. Odysseus wants only one thing: to return to Ithaca, to Penelope, and to his son, Telemachus. But the sea refuses to let him go. And every island he steps onto takes something from him: safety, control, companions, certainty. Until only one question remains: who are you when everything you held onto disappears? The first danger seems harmless: no monsters, no blood, no storm, only a fruit. On the island of the Lotus Eaters, some of his men taste the lotus and lose all memory of their purpose. They no longer want to return. They no longer want to fight. They simply want to stay. It is one of the quietest, yet most dangerous trials of the entire journey. Because not every danger arrives as an enemy. Some arrive as numbness, as distraction, as comfort, as the gentle forgetting of what once mattered to us. Odysseus is forced to drag his men back to the ships, not because they are suffering, but because they have stopped remembering. Then Odysseus encounters the Cyclops Polyphemus, a one-eyed giant, primitive, massive, isolated. He sees the world from only one perspective. He knows no balance, no law, no hospitality. The Cyclops is not merely a monster. He is the image of a consciousness that knows only itself. Odysseus does not defeat him with strength. The giant is far too powerful for that. He defeats him with cunning. He calls himself nobody, gets Polyphemus drunk, and blinds him. For a moment, it seems as though everything has been won. But then Odysseus makes the mistake that destroys his entire journey home. He shouts his name into the wind. Odysseus, the hero of Troy, the conqueror of the Cyclops. And in that moment, intelligence turns into pride. Polyphemus calls upon his father Poseidon, god of the sea. From this point on, the journey is no longer merely difficult, it is cursed. But the curse does not reveal itself immediately. At first, it even seems as if Ithaca is finally within reach, and that is exactly what makes the next loss so cruel. Later, Odysseus receives a bag of winds from Aeolus, a gift that almost carries him home. Ithaca is already visible, the destination lies before them. But his men believe the bag contains treasure: gold, silver, spoils. While Odysseus sleeps, they open it. All the winds escape. The ship is dragged back into the open sea. This scene is brutal because it feels so human. Sometimes we do not fail because the goal is too far away. Sometimes we fail because we are almost there, and in the final moment, mistrust, greed, or impatience pulls us backward. On the island of the sorceress Circe, Odysseus's men are transformed into pigs. The image is harsh, but precise. Whoever lives without awareness falls back into instinct: eating, sleeping, desire, forgetting. Odysseus himself resists the transformation because Hermes gives him a protective herb. But what matters is not only that he overcomes Circe. What matters is that she later becomes his teacher. She shows him the next step, the path into the underworld. Because anyone who truly wants to return home must go deeper than the next shoreline. He must go where he can no longer avoid himself. Odysseus descends into the realm of the dead. There he encounters shadows, memories, and the blind seer Tiresias. The underworld is not a side quest. It is the turning point. Because here Odysseus learns that his return home is not simply a route across the sea. It is a test of his nature. He must understand that not every boundary should be crossed, that not everything can be taken, that there are powers before which even a hero must become humble. He does not leave the underworld as the same man. He knows more now. But that knowledge will not save him from everything, because the next trial does not come through violence. It comes as a voice, and it strikes the exact part of Odysseus that still wants to know how far he can go. Then come the sirens. Their voices promise knowledge, beauty, and truth. But everyone who follows them dies. Odysseus wants to hear them, but he knows he cannot trust himself. So he has himself tied to the mast, while his men seal their ears with wax. This is not a scene about courage. It is a scene about self-awareness. Odysseus knows that part of him wants to follow, and that is exactly why he survives. Not because he is untouchable, but because he takes his own weakness seriously. Shortly afterward, he sails between Scylla and Charybdis. On one side, a monster that will devour 6 men. On the other, a maelstrom that will destroy the entire ship. There is no good outcome, only one that is less destructive. Here, the Odyssey reveals a truth modern stories often avoid. Some decisions do not save everything. Some decisions only save what can still be saved. Odysseus chooses the loss of 6 men in order to lead the others forward. It is not a heroic scene. It is a heavy one, and that is exactly why it stays with us. On the island of the sun, god Helios, Odysseus is warned. The sacred cattle must never be touched. But his men are starving. They wait until Odysseus falls asleep. Then they slaughter the animals. As punishment, Zeus destroys their ship. Everyone dies. Only Odysseus remains, drifting on the ruins of what was once his journey home. Now nothing is left. No fleet, no men, no power. Only one man in the sea. And this is where the Odyssey becomes most powerful, because sometimes the true return begins only after everything that gave us an identity has been stripped away. Odysseus washes ashore on Calypso's island. She offers him what no mortal should refuse: peace, beauty, immortality, an end to all suffering. But it would not be a true home. Odysseus weeps at the shore and stares across the sea, not because Calypso is cruel, but because even a perfect place becomes a prison when the soul does not belong there. After 7 years, he is finally allowed to leave, not as a victor, but as someone who, despite everything, still longs for home. But returning home does not automatically mean peace, because while Odysseus wandered across the sea, something else settled inside Ithaca, and the final monster is not waiting on an island, it is waiting inside his own house. When Odysseus finally reaches Ithaca, nothing is simply over. His palace has been occupied. Strange men consume his wealth, pressure Penelope, and claim his place. This is more than an outer conflict. When the inner king is absent for too long, other forces take over the house: greed, chaos, noise, entitlement. Odysseus does not return boasting as a hero. He returns disguised as a beggar. Because true homecoming does not begin with glory, it begins with recognition. Penelope has waited, not passively, but watchfully. She is the unmoving center of this story. And when Odysseus strings the bow that no other man can string, it becomes clear who truly rules this house. The king returns, not as the same man who once departed, but as someone purified through loss. The Odyssey is so powerful because it is not only about Odysseus. It is about us, about the moments when we lose our direction, about the voices that tempt us, about the storms that throw us backward, about the losses that strip us bare until we no longer know who we are without our roles, victories, and certainties. And it tells us this: homecoming is possible, but not because the road becomes easy, because something inside us never stops remembering. Ithaca is not a place. Ithaca is the moment when we finally return to ourselves, and perhaps the greatest act of heroism is not conquering the world, but returning, after all the wrong turns, to what truly matters, to our heart, to our truth, to our inner kingdom. And if you feel that ancient myths preserve more than stories, then continue walking the forgotten paths.